when spearfishing started kind of getting mainstream, and there was like some of the first spearfishing companies, Jay Reif with Reif International did a phenomenal job of bringing a really high quality product that was consistent to the market and kind of keeping that going and, setting the standard. And he did a really good job of making things in the United States, which you're going to see a big change here soon because of all the supply chains that are messed up with, China and basically anywhere overseas being closed. It's going to be tough to get gear. So Brad owns Headhunter Spearfishing, and he makes the majority of it here in-house. So they've still been cranking. I think him and the other guys, they each work a couple hours and then switch out so that they have their social distancing and everything. But they make some pretty incredible gear. Hello, what's up, Nico? From Guadalupe. But if you guys hadn't already looked at it, there's Brad came out with a new pole spear that him and Luke designed, and they've been working on for a while. And we're going to give one away tonight. So you guys stay tuned to the end. We'll probably give it away about 10 to 10, and we'll kind of give some ideas throughout for different names. And if you guys have names as we're talking here, you're welcome to share them. And we're going to pick our top 3 each, and then we'll go through with you guys, and you guys help vote on it. Excuse me, and we'll pick the best name. And you can look in my my bio, or I guess not bio, my feed, whatever it's called. I put up a picture of it today, and Brad has it up on the Headhunter site as well, so you guys can check that out. Let's see. Brad, are you on here yet? I don't know if I've seen you yet. Naj is on here. What's up, Naj? But as always, if you guys have questions as we're going through this stuff, feel free to ask. That's one of the great things about doing this is you guys have a pretty good audience with some of the best spearfishermen in the world, and the guys that are really behind making the gear that you guys use every day. And it's interesting, a lot of stuff gets made and then gets made better, and people think like it's an original idea, but generally it's just similar ideas and people making it better and making it their own. I'm finally getting the phone set up here. Sorry, it's like so shaky. But Brad has done a really good job of keeping the innovation going, and drawing on a lot of experience in the water, and he's got a pretty good support group too, from, it's good to always have somebody coming in from Cayman Brac, the motherland. Good people on the water that are giving feedback to him. Over the years, he's had some of the best, Florida guys that are going to the Bahamas, and some of the best Bahamian guys giving feedback. So he's come up with some really cool stuff. And because we're all buddies, there's no BS. If something sucks, we tell them and it gets fixed. And that's the only way to make stuff better. You'll see a lot of these pole spear companies, they come out and they'll have dissimilar metals. And if you have two metals that aren't the same, and especially if they're in salt water, they basically create a battery. And that's why they corrode so fast. And you just got to get these piece of crap pole spears and connections and stuff. And yeah, wanted to show you guys this. This just came in the mail today. I was going to give this away. Yeti sent me a message saying they were going to send all the new stuff that's coming out. And this came, and I was going to give it away, but there's no way. This thing's awesome. So hopefully I'll get some more and I'll give them away. And as this progresses, with these nightly seminars or podcasts or whatever the heck you want to call them, we're going to try to give more and more stuff away. And tonight will be the first chance for that with this pole spear. Bradley, where are you at? Hey, Naj, can you text Brad? Tell him to get with it. There he is. So let's see if he comes on. we go. This should work here. This should be Brad. I tell bulls, delivers, baby.
Yeah.
Bradley, you might have to do it with headphones.
I feel famous. I can hear you
I know, but sometimes
more
there's
than I
some.
want to.
Let's ask everybody: is there any echo?
Echo.
Usually, you're actually pretty well dressed, and somehow you make this work.
I put in the I want to make your sponsors proud. Do I need headphones?
I don't know. Everybody says it's good. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Cool.
What are you drinking?
Not
Nice.
Corona.
Nice. it's the cure. So I don't know if you were on already. We're gonna.
No, I wasn't. I was going through there was a bunch of last minute names everyone submitted, so I was just trying to make sure I was caught up on everything.
So to give you guys a little thought process, I'm gonna already say a couple of the names. I actually asked.
I think we should save this to the end. I don't know.
I know, but look, there's so many fun ones. Point and poke, the Cheeto, hammer, stick pick, the silencer, the Big Bambino, power puncher. I think that on mine alone, I had 360 or something crazy.
We had 700.
Wow. So
Yeah.
1,000 people are, and of course none of them are watching now. So if they're not watching, they're not going to get it.
Yeah, they've got to be on here.
So if you guys had a good name or your buddy did, you better be watching this because we're going to give this thing away. Are we allowed to see it right now?
Sure.
This new thing? So
Sure.
so tell me a little bit about it.
So basically, we were doing inventory back in
Yeah, that's good.
early January, and we came across
Fart
a
dart.
box of the what's that?
Somebody's put the fart dart.
I like it. We came across a bunch of the nose cone, like the tip piece
For the
for
pile
the
driver.
old pile drivers. We had like almost 40 of them, and then we had pretty close to 40 of these full length tubes. Right, we'd never cut them down. They were 8 foot, 8.5 foot, I think, and so I just wanted to kind of glue it all together, but I needed to machine the other back piece of it. I just didn't have time until during this whole quarantine. So I actually filmed the process of designing it and machining it all in the shop. The design process, using the lathe, the machine part of it, putting it in the mill, machining the rest of it, fitting it, changing it up, making the beads and the rollers and all that stuff. And I'm editing a little video. It's probably too nerdy for most people, but I like watching that kind of stuff.
So it's a one piece.
So it's a one piece.
How long is it total?
It is as long as the tube was. That's
So
I'd say
8 foot.
it's like 96 inches. Yeah.
All right, do the math for me. I don't know what that is. Is that 8 foot?
Probably like right at 8 foot.
So
yeah.
8 foot plus the injector rod, so it's basically 9 foot. So that in
9.5.
9.5. So when Luke and I were talking last night, that's like what I said was basically the magic number, especially for blue water. Much longer than that, I think you end up slowing down a lot, and it's too much to move like through the water.
I mean, this is a big spear, right? This is bigger than 3/4 of an inch, so it's probably the largest diameter spear that's out there. The pile drivers were stout, right?
They were really stout. I still have one or two.
They're a little slow, and you and I talked about this when I was machining the part, and that's kind of why there's so much band on a spear this size. When it was a traditional band, that you and I were talking, we decided to go with a roller just to get that extra,
Makes sense.
couple feet of distance. But
Is it
it's
still
already
fast?
it's not a fast spear, and it's going to be the same speed as the old pile drivers. It's going to be a slow spear, but it's going to be a one-piece spear that's you're going to be able to shoot big fish with.
It's a thumper.
It's a thumper. It's not for shooting.
That's my vote. If somebody hasn't put that in yet, put thumper right now, and
that's in there somewhere.
You can claim it. Because I think that's what I wanted to call pile driver too. Somebody better claim thumper and let me borrow it. If that wins, like I'll take you spearfishing too. There you go, Anthony.
There it is.
Anthony's on it.
Yeah.
So I know we talked today a couple times as we normally do, and one of the things that I don't think people are really aware of is the whole evolution of pole spears, and we'll go back even further than that. So Brad and I met when I was spending a lot of time in Australia. The girl I was dating at the time lived in Sydney, so I lived in Sydney when I wasn't working on the ships or traveling, and I'd travel up and down the coast spearfishing and surfing and generally raising hell. And Brad was graduating college and put a thing up on Spearboard, which I don't even know if that still exists.
I don't even think it was Spearboard. I think it was like scubabubble.net or something.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And I always joke, I thought he was no, I'm not even going to say it, but
Lady boy?
a lady boy. But I ended up, saying, look, man, if you're traveling, he was asking about how to travel with guns. And I said, if you're going to travel over there, I'm already going to be over there. I'm going to Fiji, Tahiti, blah, blah, blah. Let's just get together. So I picked him up in, oddly enough, a Toyota Corona, which
it gets better than that, though. I met you out at a bar in Sydney, and I was like, seeing what your plans were for the next, week, 2 weeks. I had zero plans. I had just the money from selling my surfboard and moving out of Gainesville. So I had a few grand in my pocket and a lot of time. You said you were buying a car. I'm like, yeah, I'll go move around. And we just bummed our way around Australia.
You came down there with your family too, right?
Yeah, well, they came down they'd never seen Australia, so they I was down there for a week or 10 days, and we did the big saw all the important stuff you're supposed to see. And then they flew out, and I went feral. Right.
So for how many years after did you think that I took your sister home one of those nights?
No, I pretty much, I know better, Cam.
It never happened, but I like teasing you about it. So I picked Brad up, and we went up the coast, and we just had the best time. I think I talked on one of the other episodes about spearing the mulloway, which are the equivalent of the white sea bass. And Brad and I had heard all these stories about how these things are so hard to find, guys that dove their whole lives and never done it. But the big difference for Brad and I was we grew up hunting in holes. So we were used to looking in every hole and really getting in there. And we just tore them up and down the coast. So people were like, what the heck, man? 2 kids from Florida, never seen these things before. And we just figured them out.
We'd never seen a white shark, so we had nothing to be afraid of.
Dang.
Right.
We're not even going to talk about that. So pole spears, obviously, people usually start out as kids with pole spears. At least that's the way it used to be. Your parents would just give you a pole spear. And there was never anything that good. There was really heavy duty ones like the West Coast guys had that were solid aluminum, and they were just heavy clunkers. Then you had somebody made an aluminum one, which
that was Henley. Henley made that.
Henley made the aluminum one, which
the gold Henley spear
bent immediately, and those are basically
that was the Henley spear wouldn't bend. It was solid.
What were the light ones, like a JBL or something?
Or 7/8 solid aluminum. It was knurled on the outside. It was a multi-piece spear. And that was the gold standard. That was the heavy spear that people would have one of those on their boat, and it would last forever.
Right.
But you'd load that thing up and go to shoot it, and it just moved
Right.
It was great for a big grouper in a hole. It was really hard to shoot muttons with, right?
So the next thing was the Hawaiians were light years ahead of us. The Hawaiians had already figured out that a light, fast spear for their 3 prongs was super effective for getting small fish. And I think I got a hold of a Lance O'Hara, which was a carbon fiber pole spear. I mean, gosh, early 2000s probably, and it was pretty sweet. And then I went to the Hatteras Bluewater tournament, and there I met Yoshitake and Minagawa from Japan, and they told me about these spears they had, and they showed me the website or whatever, and it was all in Japanese, and I said, this is the one I want. And it was
that was a killer spear. That was a badass spear.
I still have it. I still have
broke it.
I did break it. That's the one I took to go try to shoot bluefins. I think it was 12 feet long.
But it was long. It was 3-piece. It was tapered at the back. It was carbon. It was tapered at the back, tapered at the front, and had straight midsections, which is I think what you base the rifle on. Right. That kind of shape. And then it was a super light spear. It had a light band. And then
but it was quick.
It was really fast. It was pretty long, especially for back then. It was ridiculously long.
Yeah.
But the thing it had was that slip tip. It had a real slip tip, like a miniature spear gun slip tip, but with a really pronounced metal barb.
Right.
And that's what
A single
I remember.
barb coming off of it.
Single barb, and that slip tip's what I fell in love with on that spear. Like that's really. I kind of took the old sea stinger slip tip, as far as like the bulkiness and the size, and modeled it after that Japanese slip tip.
Right, and that pole spear is the first one that you shot that wahoo with too, right?
No, was it?
Yeah, and when we were in the Bahamas and you shot that who?
I can't remember what I shot it with.
I'm almost positive it was that one. But anyway, so from those ones we started thinking, and you had already started messing around with your own pole spears and slings and stuff, and I was working for Reef at the time, and I was like, look, I think a pole spear would be an incredible thing. So we went and I showed them all these different ones that I had, and we came up with, basically we went to a golf company that made golf clubs, and they've got the carbon fiber tubes or whatever. We made those Reef ones that were fast, but they broke. Yeah. And I still love those things, but they just break too much, unfortunately.
It's that spear it shoots really well. It's the rigidity, which it's a balance, right? Like if you make it with composites, if you make it stiffer, it's gonna absorb less of that stress, right? It's not gonna give as much. But that rigidity makes it shoot straighter, makes it shoot harder. It makes it an easier spear for beginners because it doesn't have any flex in it. So that spear it shot great, but it definitely did fail more than you'd want a spear to.
Right, and that one, I mean, God knows how many of those I broke, but I shot some incredible fish with that. I mean, I shot whenever I first got the first one, I told Jay, I was like, look, my plan is to shoot every pelagic I possibly can with this pole spear for a year before we release this thing, and just kind of get people interested in pole spearing outside of the Bahamas and Bermuda and Japan. And that was like my big drive was to, and I mean, between our small group of friends, I mean, we really blew up that industry. And then you came out with the Predator.
I think you and I, so we went on a trip to Africa in 2010, and you had, that was the first time I saw the Reif prototype, and I had the Predator prototype. We both were using them on that trip at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was
awesome.
That was fun. Yeah.
But I mean, with the pole spears, like if you guys don't know, like with pole spears, you can basically land any fish. My biggest is a 219-pound yellowfin, which there's video of on YouTube. And incidentally, that same day when I shot that fish, I went to second shoot it again. I had left a fish at like 100 foot, and the guy that filmed me blacked out on the way back up. So I ended up saving that guy that day. And then that same record was broken by Dan another year or two later, because I was like, no one's ever breaking that. 219 yellowfin with a pole spear, never being broken. And Dan shot like a 270. So it's unbelievable what's possible with the pole spears now. And that's why, that's the way Brad's mind works, is like always making things better and faster. And, there's no one pole spear that's going to do everything. Hence the reason
there really isn't.
What you got.
I mean, I'm fortunate that I have a full quiver. When I go on a trip, I've got, 3 different kinds of sling shafts. I've got 2 different slings rigged up. I've got 2 of each kind of pole spear rigged differently. And I'm always testing stuff. And I realize that most people don't have that, sitting in their dive bag. But I really can't decide on what my favorite spear is. It really just depends on where I am, what fish I'm hunting, what kind of trip is it? Is it a day trip where I'm going to dive for an hour and I just need something that's, going to travel well? Or is it a trip where I'm going to the other side of the world and I have to bring something with me that I can count on, no matter what?
Right.
And I'll sacrifice over here for dependability over here. And it's just, every spear's different, every situation's different. A lot of it's personal preference. What feels good to you? What are you comfortable swimming with? There's gonna be people like a spear like this, as of yet unnamed spear. There'll be people that don't like to swim around with something that's just that stout. It's a lot.
In my opinion, we always kept the pile driver in the boat for when a fish went in a hole.
Right.
Because people make the mistake of when a fish is in a hole, they know they can get right up to it, because most of these big groupers that are in holes, we can go up and almost touch them. So people make the mistake of getting this close and shooting, and the thing doesn't have any chance to speed up. So to give you
Especially
guys,
with a roller.
especially with a roller. So to give you an example, if I'm going to punch you guys, if I start back here, I'm going to have a lot of momentum and be able to punch you, and my arm's going to come straight. You already have it open, man. You need to chill that thing proper.
What's that?
Don't worry about it.
Much work,
But
Cameron.
when you're in a hole and you're already this close and you're trying to punch, it's going to have nothing. So you've got to give a spear, a little room to speed up. I tell people back up a little bit. Yeah, this is Brad's stone crab / lobster gauge / bottle opener.
It's just senseless plugs. We got
So
Yeti
these heavy pole spears have a lot more mass behind them, and when you're close like that, it's gonna punch a lot harder. Those light pole spears, they really need like probably double the distance to speed up, and really get that thing. I may have just snorted.
I think the light ones speed up very quickly.
But they just don't have the punch. It's just a mass
But once
power
that band
ratio.
stops giving it, power, they just lose. They just don't have the momentum to keep carrying themselves, and that's where you see like a heavy pole spear can keep carrying that weight, that momentum, an extra foot, 2 foot, 3 feet. And the thing you have to understand with a pole spear is when you're shooting 8 feet, 10 feet, to shoot an extra foot or two, that's a 10 or 20% difference, and that's a lot, right? And then you switch from a regular band to a roller band, which is going to add another 20 to 30% of distance that's still under power.
Right.
So you have the right mass for what you're trying to shoot, right? And then you have the right band setup. And
So
you can get the extra range, but getting that extra range, you lose.
So
benefits at the other end.
For people going to the Bahamas, and this is what I tell most of my clients, because we're constantly outfitting people. Like I get this call every week. What do I need for the Bahamas? And we'll get everything top to bottom for them. I usually suggest 2 pole spears. I'll say get a Predator and get a Nomad. And I like the Predator for the kids and shooting muttons and hogs and stuff like that in the shallower stuff. And I like the Nomad, which is a 3-piece, because I can take the middle section out and shorten it when I shoot fish in holes and when I'm shooting lobsters and stuff. And also it has so much punch. Like I've fallen in love with the Nomad. And I imagine this next one will be muttons. When the muttons start spawning, I think that one will be really good for muttons too.
This one here, this big one.
Yeah.
It's a big spear. So there's guys out there that love, a very heavy spear. They're always targeting big fish, like Tavera, right? Like Miami Skin Diver, always going after big fish. And you need something.
Big fish and big girls.
What's that? Yeah. And you need a spear for that. Like you can't just shoot a light, fast spear if you're only targeting big grouper.
So what do you suggest when people call you and say, "Hey, I'm going to the Bahamas. I've never used a pole spear before. What do I need?"
It depends on, the first thing I ask them is, all right, how strong are you? How deep do you dive? And how are you traveling over there? And, how much experience do you have? And if people have, there you go. If people have, if they're going to be flying commercial,
right,
I generally just lead them right to the Nomad.
Right, because it breaks down so much.
Because it breaks down. If that's a little out of their budget, I might lead them towards like one of our travel sea stinger spears if they're a beginner.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Which those pole spears are a great value.
Dude, those things are
quick. We'll put the head on our flip tip on them. Yeah, they're fast.
Yeah, they're super fast.
Yeah, I mean it's similar to the it's really similar to the old, not the old, Reif still makes it, the Reif pole spear, but it's a little less expensive and it's a little stronger.
I have another name for the pole spear.
What do you got?
I'm just gonna put it in here and somebody can claim it.
Shut up, Carrie.
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 Actually, I'm surprised.
Bear.
The Bahama Bear.
I like that.
So that's a good point, and it's very true. And same thing with with any gear, it's very person specific. And I always tell people with masks is a good example. Like they're like, "Oh, you love your mask, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yeah, but look at the shape of my face." I have a very strange shaped face, so I have a narrow mask. Like I wore like a little kid's mask for like 10 years because that's what was the best one for that fit my face. Because everything else is like these giant scuba masks before they
Well, with your
started
little
making them.
eyes, you only need like a bottle cap size mask. You know, that's like enough.
Yeah, everyone's like low volume. I'm like, yeah, they're all low volume. But yeah, you need to. Everybody needs to get the right gear for them. You know,
Right.
and
And there's more to it than just what fish are you targeting. There's more to it than you know, what are you looking for from like range or durability or whatever it is, right?
ooh, I like the
Um,
Haymaker. That's a good name, Nika. The
the
Haymaker. That's a good one.
So yeah, so I don't know that like, when customers ask us, there's kind of like a list of things that we go through and just kind of see what their real needs are. Because if we tell them, oh, this spear is perfect for you, and then like, yeah, I have to fit in my backpack, like, well, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So, you know, and a lot of customers will call us up, and we'll end up, you know, telling them to call like, you know, one of the local dive shops and say, just go buy a $30 fiberglass pole spear, because if you've never shot one before and you're only going for half a day, maybe don't spend the money. You know, it's a pole spear is an expensive spear gun shaft, right?
Yep. That's a good way of putting it.
They're $30 to, I mean, I've seen some that are $600-700 for like a badass custom pole spear, and you know, that's a lot of money to spend on something that you might not like using or never use ever.
Right. And if you guys ever buy a pole spear that you don't like, just tell me. I'll put it on here and sell it for you. We'll give it away next week or something, and just get you a different one, because it is specific to like where you are or whatever. Like having the Predator in really crappy viz is not going to work. You know,
Yeah,
if you're in
too long,
if you're in 3-foot viz.
So the Predator came about, like you talked about a Lance O'Hara pole spear, and you know, years ago, I worked for a guy that owned Chubb Key, so I spent a ton of time there. It was back in like 2005 maybe, and I would spend weeks on end there with no tender. I would just swim from shore, and it wasn't as sharky back then, so I could go out, I could hit Mama Road Rock, I could go out to Diamond Rock, you know, just swim out there and dive that edge. I'd be out by myself with a Hawaiian sling, and I'd have a float line tied to my weight belt. And I got really sick of losing my shaft and having nothing, and then having to swim, I don't know, half mile back to land. And so my mission in life was to build a pole spear that was.
I think your voice just cracked.
It definitely just cracked.
I've known you too long.
My mission was to build a pole spear that shot like a Hawaiian sling, because I only shot a Hawaiian sling for 10, 15 years at that point, right? And so I really wanted the speed and the range of a Hawaiian sling, because I loved shooting mutton snapper and mackerel and free swimming fish. I loved that, just quick, boom, shooting it, right? And every pole spear I used was slow. Didn't have the range, didn't have the speed, and I was much better, like 2 or 3 to 1 with a sling versus a pole spear. So I ordered a Lance O'Hara out of the back of a Hawaiian skin diver and was shooting it as a 3-prong. And then I'm MacGyvering it and having people machining adapters, and we're doing this and doing that. And at one point I had a Lance O'Hara I'd hacksawed a piece off and like drilled out a piece off the Gatku and glued that together. I'd taken like the Gatku tip and then ground that down a different way and had it all jerry-rigged with like a rubber band holding the tension on and everything. And that was my spear for, I don't know, a year. And every time I'd, you know, lose a tip or do this, I'd have to order another piece and do it. This is going back, you know, 15 years from now, 15 years ago. And it worked okay, but the back end was aluminum on that Lance O'Hara. And if you didn't twist it,
right, I remember that.
And you were like, I'll never forget, like
my first one,
2 or 3 times where I had like a school of like mutton snapper like swirling around me, and I'm like sitting there, they all
excited.
See them, and I get excited, I load it, and I just don't feel any tension. And I look back, and I have a J-shaped pole spear.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so, you know, I was like, all right, I got to fix that. And I worked with like fishing rod manufacturers, and we were custom wrapping blanks that were untapered and building the back end, and just changing things up and making it light like that, but making it resilient. Like everyone's like, oh, it flexes a lot. I'm like, well, it's a 1/2 inch in diameter. you can't make it stiff or it's just going to shatter. So
Right.
it has to bend.
That's tough.
Yeah. So like, yeah, the spear flexes, but it flexes. I have videos of that thing just snaking through the reef because it can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes someone who wants a spear that's that fast and that light and willing to work with it to make the predator work. And it's a fantastic spear, and it's what I use for forever.
So we can get off the pole spear subject for a bit. If you guys are just tuning in here, like this is Brad Thornbrough, Headhunter Spearfishing, and we've been talking about pole spears mostly and giving each other shit about other stuff. He's got
sister? Really? You had to bring up my sister.
Why not? Because I've never told you one way or the other. Like I just mess with you constantly over the years.
If you thought I believed you for a millisecond, you misjudged me, my friend.
You've known me long enough. I have zero game. I'm so lucky to have gotten my wife and trapped her.
Yeah.
I'm not letting go of that one. He is not giving it. We're going to give away a pole spear tonight. So you see all the comments coming in. It's people like putting names out for the new pole spear. Now, I'm hoping that you've got some of the other stuff that you're okay with sharing. Like Brad is constantly like doing all kinds of crazy stuff to innovate and make, some new stuff. But on trips that we've done, and Brad and I have been God knows how many places around the world, mostly chasing doggies and big yellowfin. And Brad actually, I think what is the accepted world record is 239 or 238 for doggy.
Far from accepted, buddy. It was a big fish.
No, I'm saying the actual what is the world record on the websites or whatever. Yours is still bigger, right? Your Dogtooth Tuna.
At the time, I haven't even looked.
I want to say they're within like half a pound of each other. So Brad Thornbrough has shot the longest and almost the heaviest Dogtooth Tuna on record. We were in a place in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and I had shot one earlier in the day that weighed 243, 242,
Yep.
and
just ask Richie Zacher.
Yes, oh my gosh, the Rain Man of spearfishing. We'll get him on here too. And that afternoon, after we came in and weighed it, and we knew that thing like blew the record away, which I actually had the record at the time. I had a 201. Shot the 243 that afternoon. We went out, and I've never seen Brad dive so like insane.
Well, I was pissed because we were diving one spot for 15 straight days.
We moved around a little
bit. We hit that spot. Okay, so 10 of the 15 days, we hit one high spot, drift after drift, 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever it was, like sun up.
2 drops per drift in a 2-mile drift.
Yeah. So you'd have to breathe up, and you'd see the bait, and one guy, like you and I were trading off guns, and one of us would have the tuna gun and one would have the burley gun. And you'd get one guy would dive a little early and maybe see stuff up current, come up. The other guy would dive and maybe be on point or a little late. Mm-hmm. And we would do that. And every 20, 30 minutes, you'd each get 1 drop, so 2 drops total. And we did that every 30 minutes.
15 days.
10 days.
Meanwhile, Brian's dying on board.
Yeah.
I don't know what he had. Poor Brian had. Jeez.
But we didn't see any fish for the first nine of those days, right? And then the last day, this is our last day of diving. Everything, just the current changed. The moon was right on point. And all of a sudden, we're all seeing fish. We shot a bunch of 60, 80, 100-pounders. We're seeing fish everywhere. And Cam shoots this fish that's 242, and we have to leave the spot to go weigh Cam's fish on the only little piece of land.
That's my standard move.
So
is to waste everybody else's time to look at my fish.
3 guys that are with him on the other side of the planet that can't keep fishing because we have to go weigh Cam's fish.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And so we were all a little frustrated, and then when we finally got back out there, we had maybe an hour and a half.
We're just lucky nobody died out there that day.
Yeah, we were fired up.
Meaning me getting killed by one of you guys. Yeah, so it was funny when we did that drift that I got mine, everybody dove down. We were all down at once, like in the perfect spot, and Craig shot, you shot, and I didn't have a big one close to me, so I didn't shoot. And you start bringing yours up, and you're like, Cam, go down and second shoot it again. And I'm like, no.
No, I wanted you to film it with the camera.
Film it, that's right, film it. Yeah. And I was like, no. I was like, a giant one is going to follow that one up, because you shot it like in the perfect spot, and there were so many other ones around. I was like, a huge one's going to come
It
up.
was right like where the high spot came up, and we drifted up, and right when I had him up, you could all of a sudden see the bottom at like 120.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, screw you, I'm not going. I'm not filming.
Sure enough, this monstrosity comes up, and I shoot that one. But it was awesome, because that afternoon when we went back out, you were unleashed. And I remember I was probably at 90 filming you, and I think you were at 105 or 110. And you started coming back up, and one of us saw it and started screaming or whatever, and you went back down. How deep were you shot at? Like 120?
I was at like 115.
Yeah.
I think it was at 115, and then started coming up, and I got to like, I don't know, 5 seconds, maybe 5 seconds of heading up, and that big one came through, and he was below me, and I went back down to about 120, and he was probably 5 or 10 feet below me, and I shot him like straight down through the back.
Do you have the photos on there?
130.
Do you have the photos like fresh on there?
Nah,
Hey,
don't.
Brian, I see that you just came on here. If you have them, text me the photos real quick, and I'll put them up on here. But
Dude, Brian, he took the most amazing. That fish
Unreal.
looks like 700 pounds.
it does. When I saw it, I remember when we hit the surface, it's probably on video, I was like, it's a 300-pounder. It was so freaking big. I think that I was so locked in, like looking at mine, that I didn't even think of it. But the only reason that Brad's fish was bigger than mine, whenever you shoot a dogtooth tuna, they get hit and they're like, and they swim a little bit and they go, ugh, and throw up whatever the heck they have in their stomachs. And they're eating these giant rainbow runners, like 15 pounders. Am I exaggerating? Like 10 to 15 pounds?
Like a 15-pound grouper in its stomach.
Well, no, that's what saved. That's the only reason mine was bigger, is it had a one of those coronation trout stuck in its throat. So it tried to throw everything up, and yours threw up like 2.5 rainbow runners. Mine threw up like 2 rainbow runners, huge. So both of them lost like 30 pounds. So those were like almost 270 or 280 pound doggies. It was crazy. But so that was pretty cool. And I mean, Brad and we've had so many encounters, like crazy ones. Fiji, probably the closest I've come into blacking out besides the Steve Bennett thing. You and I were doing our first actually real deep drops back in our first Fiji trip. And I came up and I was like, oh, hold me. But that same day, I'd shot a real big doggy, like right in the top of the head, like a monster. That was like one of the second or third, like 200-pounders I'd seen. You remember that under that Bonita school?
I remember that spot, man. It was the Wild West back then. There was no internet. I mean, there was internet was there, but there was no communicating with people, sharing pictures. I mean, you didn't know what
it was. Rumors, man.
Yeah, you just kind of like look at Google Earth was around. Google Earth was very helpful back then. That helped a lot. But other than that, I mean, you're just kind of figuring out as you went, rigging your own gear. We were using like Rabitech pipe guns.
Yeah, 2-band Rabitech was like a big gun.
Yeah, and it was pretty wild. It was fun. Like Home Depot rope for float lines, no bungees. We had those we had the Rob Allen, the little Rob Allen, like
15 footers or something. Yeah.
I think they're called Remoras now or whatever. The little Rob Allen floats.
B
had
just,
like 3 of those.
Brian just sent me these photos here. Oh, let's see. Oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. Thanks, Brian. So Brian says he was healed by this point. So on that trip, we shot like, I think 4 or 5 world records. I gotta see how I can find you again